Welcome to the Mindset Mechanics Podcast with Juan and Ladybug Jenkins, where we help you find, face, and fix your broken thinking. The shop is open, so drive on in.
Welcome to Mechanical Monday. I am Ladybug Jenkins, your mindset mechanic, reminding you that it is never too late to find, face, and fix whatever is stalling you in life so that acceleration can happen. Jay is not with us this week. He will be back in the shop with us next Mechanical Monday. But as promised, this episode is titled Pump Your Brakes: The Dangers of Rushing into Relationships. Now, while this does not need a definition per se, I do want to just talk for a minute or so about what this looks like. This can be due to a transition in your job. You may have the death of a loved one. You may need to move to take care of a parent, to support a sibling or a relative that needs your help for a time. There can be lots of types of transition: the birth of a child, a promotion, which seems good on the surface, but can bring a lot of stress and new responsibilities. So, any kind of transition can make you vulnerable to this. This can also be a result of childhood trauma, abuse, neglect. The fear of abandonment is a huge one that can cause us to rush into relationships without doing our due diligence. And this is romantic relationships, friendships. This can be jobs, all sorts of things. And so we just need to be careful. Now, everything has extremes. There can be things that are mild with little consequences, and there can be things that are extreme with huge consequences. And I happen to have a story about this very thing. Now, to be honest, if I'm being transparent, I have several stories about this particular thing, but this one, I think, highlights how dangerous it can be to rush into any interaction, any relationship with a person without doing your homework. So we are going to go back quite a bit. I was 19 years old and I was working full time and going to nursing school full time and did not have a car. Now, I lived in Broward County, Florida. And while we had public transportation, it wasn't like New York where you have buses and trains. Some places have trolleys. They run every 10 or 15 minutes. I had the number 18 bus, which got me close enough to everywhere I needed to be that I could walk. And so I had this little rolling suitcase, and it had toiletries and work clothes and school uniforms in it. So I went from work to school, home, work to school, so that I could accomplish my goals without a vehicle. So oftentimes I would fall asleep on the bus. I finally learned to make nice with the bus drivers and sit close to the front, and they would wake me up when I got to school or I got to work or got home, so I did not miss my stop. But unfortunately, it still happened sometimes. So again, back then, during the time that I'm talking about in the 90s, security wasn't the way it is now. Everything was not a scam. Everything was not, liability. And so when you would get to the bus depot where all of the buses in the county, intersected and would meet up, it was huge. You're talking about dozens of buses. And the drivers would park the bus, they would open the door, they would hop out, clock out, go home. And the next driver who was assigned, when they arrived, they would come, they would clock in, they would hop on the bus and continue to drive the route. So this little ladybug fell asleep on the bus and wound up at the depot. And when I opened my eyes, there was a man. He stepped on the bus and he sat in the driver's seat. And he started up a conversation with me. I realized that I had missed my stop. I made a little joke about that, and we began to chat. He was very polite. He was attractive. He was tall. He was well groomed. His uniform was extra crispy, which is a personal favorite of mine. Um, And I just felt very comfortable with him at that time. Granted, I was exhausted and I was wrinkled, and so he began to flirt with me, which made me feel great because I knew even at the time that I did not look my best. And so he asked me if he could take me out to dinner. And I said yes. I was flattered, really, because I knew I looked a mess. And so back then, there were not cell phones and all of those great things. And I did not have the beloved pager yet. I didn't get one of those until after I graduated a year after that. And so I gave him my phone number, my home phone number, and my address. And we set up a time and date. And I nodded off. And eventually I felt the bus moving again. And I woke up and I was home at my stop. I jumped off of the bus and I went about my way. So Friday night comes. I think it was a Friday night. So Friday night comes. I get dressed. I am clean. I am not wrinkled. I am not exhausted. I feel amazing. And he shows up. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. He brought me, not flowers, he brought me this stuffed porcupine and the little quills were shiny, they were sparkly, glittery, and I remember thinking it was the most adorable thing, and I loved it more than flowers, which is what I was accustomed to getting on a first date were flowers, and then here was this little stuffed porcupine, and it was beautiful. So he came in, and he introduced himself to my mother. My dad wasn't there at the time, and, he talked about where he was gonna take me and all of those things, and we were ready to go. And my mom says, "Erica, can I talk to you for a minute in the room?" And so I went into the room with her and I was expecting some motherly advice, and she said, "You're not leaving this house with him." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Do you see this porcupine? Did you smell him? He smells amazing," which is something else I love, is a man that smells good. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "No." And I realized at that moment that my mother, she gave advice and all of that. But once I'd gotten a certain age, she never demanded that I do anything. She never spoke to me like that. But, her word was enough. And so it really struck me in the moment that she told me, "No, absolutely not. You are not leaving this house with him," is what she said. And I thought that that was so odd, but it struck me because she forbade me to leave the house with him. And I was like, "Oh, well, this is odd." So I put that little porcupine down and I went back into the living room and I said, "I'm very sorry, but I can't go out with you." And he gave me a look and I said, "My mom says I can't go," which, in this day and age, that would probably be unheard of, but that was absolutely a thing when I was younger. And I don't remember what he said, but he didn't get angry. He was very polite. He excused himself and he left. But something that I didn't realize then that struck me later, he never called to try and talk to me. He never showed up at my house again. But this is when the pieces started to come together. I realized that despite having been in school all of these months at this time, that I never saw him again. Most drivers had a route, but I never saw him on a bus before that day, and I never saw him on a bus after that day that I met him. And when I began to ask the other number 18 drivers about him, none of them knew him. I gave them the name that he gave me, I gave them his description. None of them knew him. But because of the way things were set up, it was quite easy to just step onto the bus and sit in the seat. But none of that dawned on me at the time. The more I asked about him, the creepier I started to feel on the inside. I started to feel this kind of sickness inside of me. And then I thought about the way my mother reacted, and I realized that I had really dodged something dangerous. And so over time and through prayer, I remember one day I was just having this conversation with the Lord. And if you don't believe in God, you've never spoken with Him, you've never had Him reveal things to you, then this is going to just seem foolish. But over time, He revealed to me that this man was very dangerous. He was not who he presented himself to be, which I'd figured out after asking about him and absolutely nobody knowing him. And then one day the Lord said to me very plainly that if I had left my house with that man, that my mother would have never seen me again. My father, my siblings would have never seen me again. And then he showed me face down in a ditch. Now, I know how that probably sounds to a lot of people, but it is what it is. And if God says something to me, I believe it. And He showed it to me very plainly. And is this an extreme example? Absolutely. But how many times have you seen or heard of someone getting involved with someone, rushing into relationship with someone, and something horrible happens? Sometimes their lives are taken. Sometimes they are sexually assaulted. They have their bank accounts emptied. They have their hearts broken. They find out that this person is already married. They rush into a relationship and they find out that this person has children, that this person has a crushing amount of debt, that this person has an extensive criminal history of doing horrific things. And unfortunately, sometimes the person who rushes into relationship does not live long enough to correct their mistake. I'm thankful that the Lord allowed my mother to be home with me that day. What if she had been working late and He came to pick me up and I left with him? So we have to be careful about how we interact with people when you meet people in a vacuum. This happens a lot when people go away to college. You meet someone, they're attractive, you have things in common. Maybe you're in the same major, so you're in the same buildings and classes oftentimes, but all you know is the person that you see in front of them. You don't know where they're from. You don't know anything about their family. You don't know anything about their background, about their history. So we have to be really diligent. But even things like accepting a job without finding out anything about the company, about the culture. Now, in this day and age, we have the internet, which makes it very easy. You can jump on, there's even websites that you can jump on where ex-employees and current employees anonymously post about the culture of the company. They tell you what to really expect versus what you'll be told, you know, in an interview. Even things like timeshares or gym memberships that are time bound where you sign up and then you're stuck and you have to try to find your way out. No, it's not always deadly, but it can cause you a lot of unnecessary headache. It can cause you to spend money that you normally wouldn't. So it's just important to take a step back and do your due diligence before you enter into any kind of relationship, any kind of contract. Now, as a young lady, I have entered into relationships. I had a situation where, again, I met someone in a vacuum. I met him at work, and I thought he was exactly who he said he was. He was never late, again, always well dressed, always smelled nice. He did his job, he was well liked. But I found out sometime later that he was married. Now, thankfully, I was immediately able to, in that relationship. He didn't take it well. That is another story for another episode in and of itself. I wound up having to leave my job and move out of my apartment the same day because it turned into a stalking situation. But had I gone too far too fast, what if I ended up in a relationship where I was sleeping with this man, where I had gotten pregnant, and now I'm tied to someone that I thought I knew and did not? So again, take your time. If it's meant to be, things will work out. And that can be a romantic relationship, that can be a new friendship, that can be a job. If it is meant for you and it is meant to be, taking time is a good thing. And then you can enter into relationships, you can enter into situations feeling confident and comfortable. So Proverbs 19:2 says, desire without knowledge is not good. And whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way. So that lets us know that you can want something or someone or some job or some money or some career without knowledge, without your research, and you rush in, that it is not a good thing and you will miss your way. You will mess yourself up. You will get derailed. It is not worth it. Take your time. And if anyone is rushing you, if it is an individual that wants to date you, they want to give you a job, they want to give you some type of opportunity, and especially if they want to sell you something, if they are not willing to wait, they don't think you are worth the wait, then they are not worth entering into any kind of relationship with. So that is the story I wanted to share. That is what is in the rearview mirror on this topic. You are worth the wait. Your safety, your sanity, your salvation is worth the wait. So don't forget to join us next Mechanical Monday, where the topic is driving under the influence. And we are going to be talking about the spirit of comparison. Ooh, yes. And have we got some information for you? So I thank you for stopping by the shop today. I trust that it helped. I am Ladybug Jenkins, your mindset mechanic, reminding you that it is never too late to find, face, and fix what is stalling you so that you can accelerate. Amen.
Thanks for stopping by the Mindset Mechanics shop with Juan and Ladybug Jenkins. Join us next time for more tools to help you overhaul your mindset. Remember that you can find, face, and fix the way you think.